building a better Bay Area. Moving forward, finding solutions. This is ABC 7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. You're watching Getting Answers live on ABC 7. We always ask experts your questions every day at 3 to get answers for you in real time. Today, are allergies getting to you right now? Recent weather patterns have made them worse than usual and complicating matters. How do you know if you have allergies or COVID? A Bay Area allergist and immunologist will join us with information you need to know. Also, the Walk to End Alzheimer's in San Francisco this fall is now open for registration. You can walk or you can volunteer. We'll talk with an organizer who volunteers as well to look at how your efforts can help in this important battle. But first, COVID cases throughout the Bay Area have been increasing exponentially for the past 2 weeks, leading some experts to say we're in a fifth swell. Notice the use of the word swell versus surge. While hospitalizations continue to fall, many people slugging through a bout of mild or moderate COVID have real questions and concerns. So today we're going to do something a little different. UCSF infectious diseases specialist Dr. Peter Chin Hong has graciously agreed to have an on-air consultation with Robin, a Bay Area woman who has an active case of COVID right now. Thanks for doing this, Dr. Chin Hong.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Kristen. And hello, Robin.
Hello, Dr. Chin Hong. Thank you so much.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for sharing your story. And thank you, Dr. Chin Hong. I do want this to be a conversation between the two of you. Obviously, Robin's questions may apply to some of you watching, but I will join as needed. Okay, so Robin, do you want to get us started by telling Dr. Chin Hong how you think you caught COVID and when you found out?
Okay, so thank you for all this. So I know exactly how I caught it. We've been trying to be careful. You know, we do have teenage children in the home, masking when we can, and we know exactly where our daughter caught it. Unfortunately, I didn't mask around her because she was testing negative until she didn't test negative. And that's exactly how I caught it as well. And I know that people are saying this is the sniffles, but we got absolutely just whacked by all of this. Fevers, headaches, body aches, coughing, nose, really bad sore throat too, and just absolute yucky energy. And so I think, you know, for people to say it's just the sniffles, in this house, it was not just the sniffles, and we're vaxxed and we're boosted and we are very current on everything. And so it was quite a surprise to feel as yucky as we do.
All right, so Robin, I'm so sorry you're going through this. What is your first question for Dr. Chin Hong?
My first question is, okay, so I have, my spouse is working remotely for the last 2 weeks, thankfully. So my spouse was spared. And I'm on day 7, but I'm still showing a little pink faint line. Our child is back in school, thankfully, tested negative. What should I do? Because day 10 is Monday. And what should I do?
Well, Robin, first of all, I'm so sorry that you got COVID. And I think above all, I want to just say that a lot of super responsible people are getting COVID right now, too. I know it still feels weird to get COVID, but we're in a different place. And I know that, you know, many people have been taking the right precautions. So I want to just say that first. The second thing is, in terms of when do you exit isolation so that your husband doesn't get COVID because he's in spirit? Even though you're seeing a faint line, it's still called positive. What it really means, and nobody's writing this down in a book or telling you, is that you're having less virus produced, so that the line is probably fainter because there's just less antigen or protein around. But the presence of it still means you're positive. So I probably want to, you can probably check every day until day 10. If day 10 is Monday, I wouldn't check anymore because studies have shown that after day 10, even though if it's positive or negative, you're still very low risk of transmission at that point. So check if it means that you can exit earlier than 10, but not after 10.
Okay, thank you. That's kind of what I was going to do. It's a daily morning test along with the coffee. And here's the other half of that lovely equation. I have to go get the other teenage child, scoop them up from their first year of college on Monday, believe it or not. And so how safe is it to fly, and what should I be concerned about?
I think since you've recently got COVID, it's going to be relatively safe for you to fly. Monday is day 10. So again, you probably want to wear a mask anyway. We don't know if, for example, you can get reinfected with BA2 12.1 versus BA2 simple, the new variant that's been more in New York. But I'll be shocked if you got reinfected because you're right coming off of this. So
Doctor,
you're
she
the most.
Probably also doesn't want to give it to anyone else, I'm thinking.
Yes.
Her
so
son,
I'll just get into the second part.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. So the second part.
That's the biggest thing. I don't want to infect others around me because I've been responsible and I will be masking.
Yeah. And thanks for reorienting, Kristen. I mean, I was definitely going to fear to that. Maybe I was too poetic on the first one. But so in terms of giving it to other people, after day 10 with a mask on, you're going to have very little risk of transmission to somebody else, given the ventilation on the plane and you're keeping your mask on. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. Like very, very low chance, if any at all.
Okay. And then going forward, because there's clearly 2 family members that have caught it, 2 family members that have not, we're all coming back together in the family setting. And everyone is due next month in May for their booster. What should we continue with that? And then what should we need a family plan, if you will?
Yes. So for the people who got COVID in the presence of having vaccines and boosting before, I would think of that as a booster itself. So meaning what it means to the people in the family who got COVID recently is that you don't have to rush out and get an additional shot. But maybe for your husband, for example, I would probably top off his antibodies if he's over 50, because I think, and maybe you might want to strategically time it around something. I think in the fall and winter, we may have new vaccine options. So by that point, you may be eligible for those. And the new vaccine options would be mixing variants. And then in the winter, Moderna is also combining a flu shot with a COVID booster so that you just get stuck once. Hopefully that will be ready in time. And that may be a cocktail of variants or one, but it will be an advance over what we have right now. And then there's a universal vaccine that I'm not sure when they'll be ready.
So let me throw something else at you. Initially, all of us who were over 18 could only get Johnson & Johnson. And then we all boosted with Moderna. And so is it possible to get the other 2 that at this point? Because
yes.
Okay.
I would think, practically speaking, again, nobody's saying this out loud. If you got one J&J, I would just think of it as one shot. So one J&J means, I think for the sweet spot, it would be great to get 2 additional shots spaced apart. If you got one J&J, one booster, and COVID naturally, I would think of that as 3 shots, and maybe you might still want to get the additional, but not in a rush.
And Robin, I'm sorry to cut in on your time with Dr. Chin Hong, but that does raise a question for me too, because today the news item came out about how the FDA advisors are slated to review a protein-based vaccine. So this is a little different. In June, Novavax. Talk about how that one may or may not be beneficial if you throw that into the equation, since it is different.
Oh, I'm so glad you opened that box, because I think for the listeners, there are 2 new vaccines that we'll expect to be released in the next 6 months or so. The first is Novavax, American company, Maryland, already approved in many countries, including Canada. Different technology. So instead of sending a message to the cell, you're chopping up bits of the spike protein and giving it some oomph. And that oomph is called an adjuvant to wake up the immune system. I think it appeals to people who were worried about mRNA technology because it is an older technology, but a highly sophisticated vaccine, which is nanoparticles. So again, you just give that to the body and the body makes antibodies to it. Then other new vaccine that people will see also performing exceptionally well is something by Sanofi and GSK. And that is going for full FDA approval instead of an EUA. So that's why it's taking longer. But both of these are kind of like older vaccines, but with newer technology attached to it, which may appeal to some people who will be worried about mRNA vaccines.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Robin, the floor is yours again.
Thank you. So going forward, should I be worried about MIS-C in my teen? and or long COVID for both of us? Or what should I be worried about going forward, and not just now in the next few weeks, but maybe the next few months?
So, Robin, I would think of your illness as two phases or biphasic. The first is what you'd feel like in the first month, and then the second would be what you'd feel like after a month. So the first month, I think you may have, you probably won't feel immediately better because you got these symptoms. It will probably take 2 or 3 weeks, but you'll gradually feel stronger and stronger. This is not necessarily long COVID. Long COVID means you have persistent symptoms and they don't necessarily get better, and you have to have it for beyond a month. And that's why I want to divide it into two phases for you. Sometimes in this first month, even though it's not necessarily long COVID, you will not feel like you can multitask or think the same way. And I think that's normal, because in some people with just regular COVID and with BA2, that happens, but it goes away. After month 1, month 2 and beyond, I think you have a very, very, very low chance of long COVID, and I'll tell you why. So one of the biggest studies recently in the last few months showed that one of the big predictors of long COVID is whether or not you had virus in your blood. So because the vaccines may not stop the enemy at the front gate with the antibodies declining and the enemy looking a little bit different, your T cells and B cells have memory from the vaccines and the boosters. So they're going to clear your bloodstream very, very quickly. So that's why in the studies, vaccinated people have 2 times or more lower chance of chronic symptoms beyond 1 month than people who are unvaccinated. So that's kind of what I would expect for you.
Well, Robin, I hope that offers you some degree of comfort, because I know your family is fully vaccinated and boosted. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Robin, was that helpful to you?
So much. Thank you.
That is fantastic. Dr. Peter Chin-Hong, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you doing this. Robin, just leave Dr. Chin-Hong a good Yelp review, okay?
Will do.
I'm kidding. But I did learn so much from hearing this conversation. Again, take care, Robin. And Dr. Chin-Hong, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kristen.
All right, coming up next, is it allergies or is it COVID? An expert is going to join us to break down the differences, so don't go away. This time of year, it's common for people to experience seasonal allergies. Some of the symptoms, though, are similar to those of COVID. So how can you tell the difference? Why does it seem so severe right now? And how do you make it better? Joining us live to talk about allergies is Bay Area allergist and immunologist, Dr. Anjali Malhotra. Dr. Malhotra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Look, many people suffer allergies year-round, but this time of year always seems toughest. Why is that?
So we are experiencing a lot of pollen right now. So in the last couple of months, we've had a little bit of tree pollen, but more recently, we're now starting to see grass pollen, which is a really big allergen here in the Bay Area.
Can I ask you if either recent weather patterns or maybe just the bigger phenomenon of climate change, are those contributing to it getting worse? Because a lot of people anecdotally say it's getting worse each year.
Absolutely. We are definitely seeing the allergy season be stronger, so having more pollen around and also lasting longer, which is really creating a lot of problems for people with seasonal allergies.
Okay, what are some of the problems? Let's talk about common symptoms.
So common symptoms would be sneezing, runny or stuffy nose, itchy or watery eyes, potentially cough, or even some shortness of breath.
So some of those are very similar to COVID symptoms, right? Can you give folks some ways to tell the difference?
Yes, it can be extremely hard to tell the difference because a lot of the symptoms are similar. So typically with both, you will see nasal symptoms. So the stuffy and runny nose, you may see with both. However, with allergies, you tend to have more of the itchy type symptoms. So along with a lot of sneezing, you may see itchy eyes, itchy nose, itchy throat. But there are definitely some symptoms that are more related to COVID or other types of viruses than allergies. So if you have fever or muscle aches, body aches, or gastrointestinal symptoms, you should probably take a COVID test.
Okay. But minus those, if you think it's most likely allergies, should you still take a COVID test?
Well, I think a lot of times people just believe their symptoms are allergy related. But because the symptoms are so similar and we are seeing COVID symptoms on the rise, I still recommend that people take a COVID test at the first sign of symptoms to be sure.
Okay. There are two main types of allergies, right? Environmental and chemical. Can you explain the difference?
Yeah, so there's actually multiple types of allergies. So we typically will see some immediate type reactions, and those are environmental allergens or foods. And those you get an exposure to something, and within a few minutes, you start to have a reaction to it. There are also delayed type reactions that you can get with allergies, and this is where the chemicals come in. So with these, you get exposure to something, and you may see a delayed response, mostly with the skin, where you start to see some rashing that comes on after you've had exposure, but starting like 2 to 3 days later.
So interesting that some people are very impacted, others not. I don't know if we have too much time to get into that, but I really want to spend the time that we have talking about how do you address the root problem? Is there any way you can nip it in the bud, or can you only mitigate and make the symptoms better, if you will?
So I really believe in prevention, and there's so many different things that you can do. So, if you are going to spend time outside, especially with seasonal allergies, it's good to pre-treat with a little bit of antihistamine about an hour or two before you go outside, but also really have some good preventative gear. So wear a hat, wear sunglasses, you can wear a long sleeve and pants, and this will really shield you from the pollen. So it kind of hangs around a little bit less and creates less symptoms. You can also have HEPA air filters. You can keep your windows and doors closed. There's actually a lot of different things that we can try for prevention.
I recently learned you can just also wash your sheets more, right? Like, let's say I'm outside, I come back, I lie in my pillowcase and my hair's got pollen in it and I don't even realize it, but it's making me sneeze. So you're right, there are a lot of things you can do. But what about making it so that you are no longer so prone to allergies? Is there anything you can do to kind of nip it in the bud?
Yeah, so the best thing that you can do for prevention of allergies, specifically if you are somebody who's a year-round or even a very heavy seasonal allergy sufferer, is allergen immunotherapy or allergy shots. These are fantastic for helping you prevent allergies by giving you back very small amounts of allergen in a very controlled manner to try to train your immune system to not be allergic to them.
Ah, Okay. All right. Lastly, can people self-treat, or would you suggest seeing a doctor?
So there are so many over-the-counter options these days. It's always good to take a stop at the pharmacy, check out antihistamines. There's a lot of non-sedating ones, as well as nasal sprays and eye drops. But if you're getting overwhelmed, or if it's really hard to get your symptoms under control, go see a doctor.
All right, Dr. Anjali Malhotra, thank you so very much for all that great information today. Nice talking with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Coming up next, a man is dedicating his life to help fight Alzheimer's disease, and he wants to encourage others, maybe you, to get involved. He's joining us live after the break. Have both. A San Francisco man is helping build a better Bay Area through his dedication to the Alzheimer's Association. Stan Wong knows all too well the devastating toll Alzheimer's takes. That's because he took on the role of caregiver when both of his parents were diagnosed. This experience inspired him to become involved with the Alzheimer's Association and the annual Walk to End Alzheimer's. Stan Wong is here now to share his story and invite you to take part in this battle. Stan, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on this afternoon.
Look, tell us about your parents. I know they went through it. Did they get diagnosed at the same time?
No, it was different. It was Alzheimer's dementia, and what happened is my mother actually passed at 97 about 4 years ago. And the challenges, of course, when you're dealing with Asian families is that you don't talk about things like this. So it's like, this is something we keep in the family. And I was at the point between him and she was relying on my father, who actually passed in last fall at 103 as a caregiver. And it was like, okay, we need to hire somebody to help. But on the other hand, learning the skills to be with somebody who does have memory issues. So I admired the caregivers and what they do. I think it's amazing. But I found for myself, it was joining a support group. And that's what really helped me to learn the skills in terms that you don't argue, you just accept the reality. Or in group, we learned the new normal, which is today it's normal, but tomorrow it's not that way anymore with your parents. So you just have to kind of live with that's what life is going to be like. So it's been very helpful to learn that.
Cherish every moment, right? What did the dementia and Alzheimer's take from them, and what did it take from you as their son, you know, seeing that?
Right. It's really difficult because the people that you love, they're no longer that same person anymore. So you're dealing with anger issues when you're where you're used to like having kind of calm parents who listen and enjoy quality time, that all of a sudden they're just they just act out. And there's been situations where it's like, okay, they just have strange dreams. My dad thought that there were knives in the bed, or that they keep on repeating something. Or it's like after my dad would say, "Where's your mom?" It's like, "I heard she died." I goes, "Yes, 4 years ago." It's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" So it's kind of that thing where you just kind of go, take a deep breath. The reality is, here's what this is what we have to do, and we need to learn that this is how our life is going to be now. But you kind of miss the fact of being able to spend special time together. You're worried about them because they're no longer the same. And if you go out, they may just blow up at you, and for no reason.
It's such a hard time for the entire family. And you saw that graphic we put up. It's 1 in 9 over 65 years old actually has it. And Stan, you referred to the stigma, which really shouldn't be there because it gets in the way of people talking about it, finding resources, right? And also being able to fight the battle better when it's all out in the open, which leads us to the Alzheimer's Walk, or the Walk to End Alzheimer's in San Francisco. I know it's going to be happening again in San Francisco in November. And the event needs volunteers. And I know that you are very involved, but you also volunteer. Talk about why volunteer.
It's so important to just give back to our community. We live in a great place. We have incredible resources. And for me, it's just, from being at the walk and just seeing other people who are caregivers, people with Alzheimer's, and just giving them and showing them more information that could be out there so that they can deal with this on a day-to-day basis. But it's an incredible family of people who, when you're there, you just feel the love of everybody who is here to just support those who are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's.
I know that you actually showed up and volunteered just a few days after your father passed away, right? Which is incredible. And I know that was a lot of support for you. Folks, check out alz.org. It could not be easier to access alz.org to find out more about both the walk taking place this November. And Stan, registration is open, right?
Yes, it is.
Yep. Okay.
And also, if you're Chinese speaking, alz.org/Asian. And it's a Chinese website.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We'll take a short break. You can join me and Stan on Facebook Live.
Perfect.
All right, we're in commercial break, so you're done with the hard part, the TV part of it, Stan, but we have a couple minutes here to wrap things up as we also stream our show. So I like to know, what do you think is needed to fight Alzheimer's right now? Do you think there are enough resources? Are there, research opportunities? Like, what is necessary, you think?
I think it's just education and awareness. I think that's kind of the challenge where it's funny today where I'm down here in LA for a funeral, and I mentioned the fact that I need to leave early because I'm going to be interviewed, and they go, "Oh, my dad has Alzheimer's." And it's like, I should join a support group. So I think there's this thing of like, it's okay. You need, to be a good caregiver, you need to learn how to do this. And it's not something we're brought up with. And the fact of correcting a parent or giving something, saying, "No, you don't do that," that only causes trouble. And it just becomes a challenge. So I think just more awareness out there that this is something that happens, as you said, in so many families, and the fact that it's important to just kind of bring more awareness to this.
Absolutely. All right. So Stan, I know last year you guys were in person, the year before was virtual, but I imagine last year was probably smaller than usual. This year, how many people can you guys accommodate and hope to have?
I'm not sure. I mean, probably I would imagine double or what we used to be at in terms of those numbers. It was last year was somewhat modified because we were kind of trying to be social distance as well, but the energy level was great, and it was really, really bad. Also having Gijo as our sister.
Yeah, fantastic. We're so happy to be a part of it. You saw Mike Nico, my colleague, in the video there. All right, Stan, thanks for sharing your story, and have a great event.
I will. Take care.
All right, everybody. alz.org is the website, and there's also a Chinese version too, so very accessible to everyone. All right, coming back out. Thank you so much for joining us on this interactive show, Getting Answers. We'll be here every weekday at 3 on air and on live stream answering your questions. World News Tonight with David Muir is next, and I'll see you back here at 4.